We are less than 20 hours into the Sam Darnold era, and we're not even sure that it is the Sam Darnold era because Brock Purdy hasn't been officially ruled out for Sunday's game. But nonetheless, it's trending that way. Adam Schefter said as much the other day. And so I did a dive back in to the notes of a man, this man, who was the only person of the 8 billion people on earth to grade 257 preseason game and training camp throws through Guy Football Focus, GFF. And I went back through a bunch of notes, not for grades, but to remember exactly how things looked for Sam Darnold and why Kyle Shanahan feels the way he feels about him. And one of the things I wrote down a couple of months ago, based on watching him and based on some of the things that Kyle had said, was not why does Kyle like Darnold, but it was how much does he actually believe in Sam Darnold? What does he see in Sam Darnold? And what Shanahan sees in Sam Darnold, I think is pretty unique for him because what Darnold has is an arm unlike any of the other Niners quarterbacks that Shanahan has coached. Maybe, once upon a time, Rosen had it, something similar to it. Not quite this, though. Trey Lance, in theory, was going to have an arm like this. And at times in practice, he did. But the thing to remember about Darnold is that in 2018, the Niners had begun the research on him before they got Garoppolo. They knew Cousins was their great white shark in that offseason, but they were winless at the point in time where they traded for Jimmy. So John Lynch said it a long time ago. He said it on this podcast, in fact. They had already begun the work before they traded for Garoppolo on that 2018 draft class. So what Kyle sees in Sam is a pretty unique prospect for his court, for the guys that he's actually coached here. Or really, it's a pretty unique prospect just based on the guys that he's actually coached. The biggest question, the single biggest question for Sam Darnold, if he plays on Sunday, and we'll go through some of the other minor questions, but the single biggest question, white whale? Yeah, I probably mean white whale. The single biggest question is, can he get the damn ball out of his hands? Sam Darnold took more than 2.5 seconds to throw on 71% of his dropbacks last year. That was the highest percentage in the NFL. He was a 54% passer in those situations, which when you go look at the data, over 2.5 seconds to throw on PFF, everybody's completion percentage goes down. When he took less than 2.5 seconds, when he got the ball out in less than 2.5 seconds, Sam Darnold was a 72% passer, but he was number one in the league in holding on to the football too long. Number one in the league holding on to the football too long. This year, so far, didn't happen. When you watched him in training camp, when you watched him in preseason games, got rid of the ball. In fact, there was a point in training camp after OTAs where he was not as good as Trey Lance. But there was a point in training camp where I said, I think Darnold knows the game. When I say the game, I mean the game of the competition for backup quarterback for QB2, him versus Trey Lance. And the game is get the ball out as fast as possible. It doesn't matter how short the throw is. Because that's what he was doing. I mean, there was, I would say, probably the first 2 weeks of camp where it felt like he was just boom, ding, dong, ding, dong, ding, dong, ding, dong. And he was hitting every throw. And Lance was trying to push the ball, or Lance was missing. It wasn't that at that point in time, Lance was pushing the ball a little bit more. But then something happened with Darnold. I don't know if he got more confident. He definitely was more confident from OTAs to training camp. I think as training camp went on, it was clear that he got more confident, and it showed itself in the fact that he started pushing the ball down the field. And by the time everybody caught up to my theory and started repeating it, because people started saying, Sam's dinking and dunking. By the time everybody started saying it, they were wrong. He wasn't anymore. Darnold started pushing the ball down the field in practice, and he did it better than the other two guys did it. And if you remember the preseason, he hit multiple by the GFF, to go back to the old GFF scale, and some of you are new here since then, but In training camp, I developed guy football focus. I just graded every throw, and no biggie. And he was hitting a bunch of +1 throws, right? We were doing them in half. You may remember half-point increments. So half, 1, 1.5, 2, and then negative half, 1, negative. And a lot of throws in football are like plus half throws. There are a good chunk of +1 throws, and there's not as many +1.5 throws, and there's hardly any +2 throws. The +2 throws, maybe you make a few of them a game. They're really difficult throws, really rare throws. But Darnold was making a fair amount of +1 and +1.5 throws. I mean, you think back to the preseason, the deep ball to Ronnie Bell down the right sideline was really, I think, a window into the thing that he does that the Niners haven't had, and that's sideline deep balls. He's good at it. He was statistically one of the most accurate deep ball throwers in the league last year. Now, obviously, smaller sample size than other guys, but that's his skill. The question on him is the biggest question for any quarterback, which is when the battle is real, can he really see it? We'll do a podcast if you're watching this like Thursday midday or in the morning or live. We'll do a podcast later today, Jen and I, probably around 1 or 1:30. And one thing I want to talk to him about is, like, what are we looking for on Sunday against the Bengals? I know it starts with getting rid of the football. And, in the world in which we have to start talking about could he Wally Pip Brock Purdy, right? And it's premature right now. But when it comes to Kyle, I guess, and quarterbacks, it's never premature, especially with this guy. The reason I've always been intrigued with this guy for Kyle is because not just Kyle's always liked him, and not just because his skill set's unique, but also because he's on a short contract. If you came here with 1 year left on your deal, this is all you wanted if you were Sam Darnold, was one game, one shot to show somebody, maybe it's Kyle, maybe it's somebody else, that you still got it. And now with Shanahan disciples all over the league, you look good in Kyle's offense here, there's going to be other landing spots for you. But the question with Darnold is, can he really see it? And I think when we think about the position that any quarterback puts themselves in or gets themselves in once they're hurt, which is the position that Brock is in now, that's the position of being replaced, of being Wally pipped, right? When we think about whether or not Darnold has that, the one hangup is, and for all the questions about Brock, and there are still many because he just hasn't played that many games, one thing's really clear, I think, with Purdy. He processes really quickly. He can see it. He's got it, right? And I was texting with a buddy who's a former NFL quarterback yesterday, and I said, I'm always fascinated by this. I text him all the time about it. I said, what is it really like in the pocket? I was watching the highlight of Brock's first interception with, he'd just been concussed, it turned out, and he's got defender right in his face, and he misses the spot on Juwan Jennings by 15 yards or whatever it was. And I was like, what is it like to stand there? And I still haven't gotten a clear picture. His answer was, he's like, Joe Montana once said, it's like trying to throw a football through rush hour traffic on Highway 101. And it's kind of like that. So I haven't tried to do that. So that analogy doesn't totally make my heart beat, but it gives you some idea of how fast everything's moving. And I think Brock, his numbers against the blitz have been excellent, right? Against Minnesota and then against Wink Martindale earlier this year. And you go back to something I've referenced a lot when Kyle Juszczyk came on the show a few months ago. He said everyone already tried to blitz the shit out of Brock. He already handled it. He did that last year. Old news. I don't know with Sam. Like, I think that's the thing. Getting it out in under 2.5 seconds is great, but you gotta process quickly to get it out quickly. unless you're just checking it down. One look, pull, and go. So I don't know. I've said for months since we started watching this guy, I'm very intrigued. I get why Kyle likes him. A confidence. I wouldn't say it's confidence for me, but I get it. And then he came out in the preseason, and the stuff he was doing in training camp, he did in the preseason. Does preseason success indicate regular season success? I mean, DTR would be an example this year of no, it doesn't. He wasn't playing against starters mostly. So there's a lot of questions here, but I've said this for months now. Once I started, I didn't get it at first. I didn't think when I watched the tape of Darnold last year that his arm strength actually played. Then I watched him in person, and the arm strength played. Like, he got balls to locations very quickly. Very quickly. So I think he's got I think he's got a lot of stuff that I don't think Kyle obviously wanted Brock in this situation, but Kyle's got him in a spot where he did want to see this guy. He did want to see this guy playing games. Stream this afternoon won't actually be at 4:00. It'll be at whatever. I haven't said it yet, but probably like 1:30. So let's see what he does. I'm starting him in my fantasy league. Bold choice. Deep balls are coming. Okay. I mean, we'll see. Ayuk down the sideline. Let's see. Can somebody separate? Ray? Where is Danny Gray getting activated for this game? Chaos about to hit the ground if Sam does well on Sunday. That's a fact. That is a fact. I'm not one of those weirdos who's been trying to push Brock as a top 5 QB in the NFL. That being said, I want no part of Darnold, and I think Shanahan's about to go full Darnold. Well, we got the bye. So that gives Brock a chance to get healthy. And as long as he's healthy, I don't think there's anything Darnold can do this week that makes him the starter against the Jags as long as Purdy's healthy. As long as Purdy's healthy, he's the starter against the Jags. Darnold could go 4 touchdowns, 350 yards this week. I still think Brock's the starter, but I don't know. I'm going to make a note. We'll talk about that later today. And it's definitely not his physical traits anyone's worried about. All right. Got to roll on with the day. We'll be back this afternoon. Thanks for hanging. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that. And sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka. All right. Later, everybody.